Hi, everybody, and welcome back for another chapter of Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj's I Am That. And today we will be looking at chapter 96, Abandon Memories and Expectations, which of course means let go of the past and let go of the future and be here now. Be here now. So let's scroll down a bit. I am afraid of my own mind. It is so unsteady. Yes, the person is unstable. The mind is constantly changing. In the mirror of your mind, images appear and disappear. Images appear and disappear. The mirror remains. Learn to distinguish the immovable in the movable, the unchanging in the changing, till you realize that all differences are in appearance only, and oneness is a fact. All differences are in appearance only, but oneness is a fact. This basic identity you may call God, or Brahman, or the matrix, Prakriti. The words matter little. It is only the realization that all is one. The realization, this is the key word too. It's something not just to believe, that's okay, but you need to go deeper than belief. You need to verify the words of Nisargadatta Maharaj. You need to realize that all is one. And how do you do that? Well, I Am That, this book is all about the how. So once you can say with confidence, born from direct experience, I am the world is myself, there is no separation, this is all one. You are free from desire and fear on one hand, and become totally responsible for the world on the other. The senseless sorrow of mankind becomes your sole concern. Now, I don't know about you, but this is something not often discussed in the non-dual circles. Yesterday, I was actually watching a few videos, old videos of Ram Dass. And I used to love Ram Dass, and even more so Stephen Levine and Andrea Levine, and all their work that they did with the death and dying. And I was drawn to it because there was so much compassion, so much understanding there. And suffering isn't something that you necessarily hear about much today. My opinion is that a lot of the modern spirituality, like law of attraction or these other things, are a little shallow. They're not bad. I'm not trying to judge them. I'm just saying they don't go deeply enough for my own preference. Because for me, it's really about suffering. As the Buddha said, life is suffering. This world, we are on fire with suffering. And so there must be an end to that suffering, a resolution of that suffering. And there must be compassion. Compassion must come up and meet suffering. So I understand that we don't want to dwell on problems, but that's not actually alleviating suffering. That's just ruminating and dwelling on pain and suffering. But there, as Nisargadatta says, if you go deeply into pain, you will find a pleasure that pleasure cannot give you. So anything that we avoid, we're hiding from, we don't want to look at, either in ourselves or in others, it's keeping us limited and shallow. Remember, God is the totality of consciousness. God is the totality of consciousness. So it's just about being willing to open yourself to the fullness of what is. What is life? It's a dance between pain and pleasure. Both are expressions. Pain, pleasure. praise, blame, liking, disliking, all this seemingly dualistic play are two expressions of the one. And there is so much suffering in the world and so much disconnectedness. Still, I think more and more we see how interconnected we are. The internet has actually helped us to see this a lot, but the internet has also increased, in a sense, our disconnectedness and our ability to get lost in fantasy, in video games, and even YouTube videos, anything that can just be distracting from the reality of life. So as Nisargadatta has just said, yes, there is a great freedom and a bliss and a relief from realizing the self, but also there is a responsibility for the sorrow and the suffering that appears before you. But of course, now, after realization, your relationship to suffering is totally different. Ram Dass, again, yesterday was speaking about Neem Karoli Baba. And he said, Neem Karoli Baba used to look at Ram Dass and say, Ram Dass, don't you see? It's all perfect. It's all perfect, he kept saying to Ram Dass. This is oneness. It's all perfect. It's just God's Leela. It's just the divine play of beingness. And yet, what did Neem Karoli Baba do with all of his free time? He served, he loved, and he encouraged others to do so. Love all, serve all, feed all. His whole life was dedicated to the service of mankind. So he didn't just bliss out and disappear. It wasn't a selfish enlightenment. It was a transformation, maybe even a transfiguration, a total giving of one's life for humanity. And yet there was no, I imagine, there was not the suffering that happens when you believe that you are a person. If you are a little person and you're trying to change the world or save humanity, I mean, that is quite the job to put upon yourself. And that can create all kinds of anxiety and suffering. There used to be a bumper sticker, I'm sure it's still around, where it says, think universally. I believe it said, think universally, but act locally. And I think that points exactly to what is being said here, is that when you wake up, when the realization happens that, oh, I am the world is myself, I am not separate from humanity, I am one with humanity. In fact, there is only one essence, then naturally, as a result of that clear seeing, naturally compassion arises. And not just a feeling of compassion, but love in action. There is a response to the suffering in the world. If someone is hungry, then if you can, you try to feed that someone. Or if they are homeless, you try to provide shelter. If they are thirsty, you try to give them clean, healthy drinking water. Little acts, but as Mother Teresa said, small acts, but with great love, great compassion. And of course, when the me disappears, when this dissolves, there's all of this energy that was being used to maintain the false self, all of that self-concern and me and mine and what about me and me, all of that energy now is given, it's extra, it is found. And we are able to use that energy not on ourselves anymore because we don't need it, but for others, for humanity. This is how Christ and any of the bodhisattvas and the avatars and the pure beings out there are able to have so much energy because they're not using it all on selfish desires, because there's no self anymore. For some of them, maybe there never was a false self. There's only love. What remains is compassion and love, emptiness, but a fullness. And this life has a dynamic quality. This love in action, it's a cosmic force, as Nisargadatta was. And it has intelligence and creativity. It can find solutions to many problems. So even a yoni has his problems. Yes, but they are no longer of his own creation, meaning they're not the mental problems that most people have. His suffering is not poisoned by a sense of guilt. There is nothing wrong with suffering for the sins of others. Christianity is based on this. Is not all suffering self-created? Yes, as long as there is a separate self to create it. But no longer a separate self, then that separate self is not creating it. In the end, you know that there is no sin, no guilt, no retribution, only life in its endless transformations, just the divine Leela. Remember, there is no I, there is no doer. With the dissolution of the personal I, personal suffering disappears. What remains is the great sadness of compassion, the horror of the unnecessary pain. It is seen by no one, by no thing, that there is so much unnecessary pain in the world. And this is, we could say, what motivates these beings to teach, to love, to serve, to give, to be that light in the world. Again, if you were a parent and you were watching your child do things that were creating unnecessary pain and suffering to themselves, you naturally would have love and compassion for them, and you would try to do what you could to educate them, to enlighten them, to help correct the error of their ways, the error of their thinking. There would be a response, is my point. Because you love your children, there is a natural compassion and love that comes forth and tries to alleviate and reduce suffering and unnecessary pain. So the same thing with the dissolution of the personal I. When this personal I, the ego, the false self, when it crumbles, when it dies, when it disappears, personal suffering disappears. It has to, because there's no longer a person. So how would you have personal suffering? There may be, as Tony Parsons says, even in oneness, of course, there is no problem. So suffering can arise, anything can arise. But I would imagine when suffering arises after the personal self has left, then it's a different sense of suffering. And again, the relationship to the suffering is so much more different, because there's no longer anyone inside who has a problem. They no longer mind, because there is no mind. So pain, it appears, it disappears. But there's no longer that personal suffering, because there's no longer a person. And then when suffering appears, when pain appears, when need appears, again, somebody who's hungry, somebody who's homeless, somebody who's grieving, somebody who's confused, when these really, they're just states of mind, states of consciousness in a sense that appear in your reality, this love, this intelligence, this wisdom can respond to that love. Respond to that need. Respond to that suffering with love, with whatever is available. but in a sense, there's no effort. There's no wishing things to be otherwise. There's a great equanimity and acceptance of pain and pleasure equally. Whatever appears is oneness. It is perceived as oneness. And the right response arises with the problem. The problem and solution are actually one. The suffering and the compassion are actually one. They arise and coexist together. Is there anything unnecessary in the scheme of things? Nothing is necessary. There's no need. This needs to happen. No. Nothing is inevitable. Habit and passion blind and mislead. So if we're stuck in habit, like a robot, or passion, obsessed with the desires, we are misled by those. So compassionate awareness heals and redeems and liberates. Compassionate awareness, affectionate awareness, loving awareness. Attention heals. This love, this wisdom, this intelligence, it heals, it liberates, it frees. There is nothing we can do. We can only let things happen according to their nature. So everything has its own movement, its own nature. A dog is a dog. You can't expect a dog to be like a cat or a snake to be like a rabbit. So the characters are who they are for the most part. Change can happen, transformation can happen, but there are certain things that just have to play out. And we see that with greater wisdom, with more experience, we see that some things cannot be changed, and that's accepted. We don't fight with what is. We don't struggle with what is. We allow everything to appear and disappear and have its life, and then it dissipates. And we don't try to always. There is a moment for trying to fix something or control something. It's not that we just sit there with our hands tied and, let everything happen as it happens. If a child falls in a swimming pool, then you jump in the pool, you save that child. So there are things we can do, but we gain a discernment, a wisdom, a knowingness of, okay, I can change that or I can't change that. I can help this situation or I can't help this situation. Sometimes it's just the trying, just showing people that you care, that you would like to help, that can change or reduce the suffering that someone's experiencing. Maybe you can't change anyone's predicament, but you can be there for them. You can simply be the presence of love. Just a listening ear, a listening heart, just being with them, giving them space, giving them a soundboard to share their suffering, to share their predicament. Maybe some insight will arise from that discussion or that interaction, maybe not. But for sure, most people would be touched, comforted, perhaps even relieved a bit, just to have the presence of another being with their suffering, investigating their suffering, perhaps even. Do you advocate complete passivity? Clarity and charity is action. Clarity and charity is action. Love is not lazy, and clarity directs. You need not worry about action. Look after your own mind and heart. Stupidity and selfishness are the only evil. Stupidity and selfishness are the only evil. I'm debating. I'm trying not to be political in these videos, but in this present day, we have North Korea and Donald Trump in America um, looking pretty stupid, I'm sorry, and also being very selfish. And yes, I do worry about the evil that could arise because of these seemingly stupid and selfish beings, which are, we have to remind ourselves, are part of the one. So that's all I'll say about that. But in other words, clarity, pure seeing, that's why it's so important that we all do the work on ourselves. We are responsible for this incarnation, if you will, for cleaning out the mind, cleaning out the desires and fears, for the not clear perceptions. We have to look after our own mind and our own heart. As Eckhart Tolle says, we have to investigate our pain body. We have to find out what sort of grief, unresolved grief, may be existing deep in the unconscious, subconscious, that is affecting our personalities and our lives. If everybody was really on board with this, 100% responsible for their minds and hearts, for sure, suffering and violence would reduce. If we stopped projecting and pointing and blaming and living in this separation of I and other, then suffering and violence would reduce. That is why I believe the message of oneness is so valid, so important, to remind people that all is one. However deeply you can hear that, all is one. I and other do not exist. No I, no other. Just life, one love. So it doesn't mean that every human being has to like every other human being. To say that you will get along with all 7 billion people all the time and want to be friends with all 7 billion people, it's not likely. It's not realistic, but that's not the point of this message either. You don't have to be friends with everybody or get along with everybody, but if there is a knowingness, a realization of oneness, then again, suffering and violence will decrease, and empathy and respect will increase. Compassion will arise. And you can imagine what would happen to the foundations and structures of our society if this oneness was truly realized by all beings. The world would change. No longer would personal, selfish concerns be at the forefront of policy and diplomacy. It would be love. How may I help you? How may I serve? I see you are suffering. How can I help alleviate or reduce your suffering? To love and be loved, to serve and be served. The dance of oneness, the dance of humanity. What is better, repetition of God's name or meditation? Repetition of God's name will stabilize your breath. Rama, 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 Hare Rama, Rama, Rama. With deep and quiet breathing, vitality will improve. Rama, 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 which will influence the brain and help the mind to grow pure and stable and fit for meditation. You see, yoga, many spiritual practices, chanting, these things help prepare and create the conditions for meditation to happen. When the conditions are created, then meditation happens very effortlessly. Without vitality, little can be done. Hence, the importance of its protection and increase. Posture and breathing are a part of yoga, for the body must be healthy and well under control. But too much concentration on the body defeats its own purpose, for it is the mind that is primary in the beginning. When the mind has been put to rest and disturbs no longer the inner space, the body acquires a new meaning, and its transformation becomes both necessary and possible. When the mind has been put to rest and disturbs no longer the inner space, Chittakash, the body acquires a new meaning, and its transformation becomes both necessary and possible. So again, I've always been the type of person to kind of go at it at all directions. I pray, I meditate, I do yoga, I go running, I sing kirtan, I chant, I breathe, I look into psychology and therapy, whatever I can do to purify the body, mind, spirit, if you will, to purify the vision, to empty myself of ego, and to increase the love and compassion which I have access to, and the wisdom. It's always about surrendering to the greater whole. Not my will, but thy will be done unto and through me. Also, eating more vegetables and fruit, less meat can be helpful. Although even Nisargadatta ate meat, and some of my favorite teachers eat meat. I'm not anti-meat. I'm not anti-anything. But I'm saying if you experiment with what you eat, you can see how foods will affect your body and your mind. And what I have found is that the more vegetarian I can eat, the more fruit and vegetables, the purer the body feels, the purer the mind feels. Okay. I think we shall end there. Discrimination and dispassion practiced now will yield their fruits at the proper time. If the roots are healthy and well watered, the fruits are sure to be sweet. So be pure, be alert, keep ready, be here now. Create the conditions for a peaceful life, for a healthy life, a healthy body, healthy brain, healthy relationships. Just keep putting love into your life, wisdom, health, intelligence, goodness, laughter. Be silly. Don't be so serious all the time. Play, dance, sing, be in nature, and keep coming back to the awareness which is aware of it all. The awareness which is primary, the awareness which is aware of all experiences, of all change. Be aware of the beingness, the aliveness, the sense of being alive. And just rest and relax and let go and let God. If you plant the seeds today, you won't need to worry about tomorrow. Everything is happening here and now, because this is all we have, is here and now. So be love now. Be the love that you are. Not out of fear, not out of guilt or compulsion. Don't be fake. Be authentic. Be yourself. Just be yourself. Just be yourself. If you can help a little bit, great. If you can bring a little love and laughter and lightness into the present moment, great. But also be compassionate towards yourself. Alleviate your own suffering as well. And you'll find that naturally, as you do the work on yourself, as you alleviate the suffering that you have within, as you look at the ego and the brain and the mental concepts and things, as you explore the truth and seek the truth, naturally, it will be of benefit to all the beings around you. As you raise your energy and raise your vibration, that expands outward, and it has its effects. But again, don't be attached to the fruit of your actions. Don't be attached to the results. Don't be attached. Be free. Dance. Be free. Let things come and go. As Nisargadatta has said in this chapter, let everything happen according to its own nature. And remain as the witness, as the white wall, always clean, empty, pure. Empty, empty. No self, no person. I can hear my wife playing a Deva Premal chant in the other room. Om Satchitananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavate Sametaha Shri Bhagavate Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat, 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. Thank you, Nisargadatta Maharaj. And thank you, everybody. See you again for another chapter of I Am That.